It is day 30 in the 2018 Utah legislative session. And there's a saying up here that goes something like, we all believe in local control until we want to control the locals. And, that's supposed to be funny, and it's used at convenient times, however. But today we had some things that really highlight sort of the principles of local control and the limitations of local control. And so I am generally a strong proponent of local control and believing that the government closest to the people governs best. But really, what is that relationship legally and based on other principles? So we understand our relationship between the federal government and states, where there is state sovereignty, that our country is formed as a union of multiple individual states, and our Constitution gives the federal government limited and enumerated powers, and everything else is reserved to the states. Now, we haven't done a really good job of pushing the federal government back when they encroach upon those state rights or when they exceed those enumerated powers. We haven't done a great job of that. However, it's our responsibility to do that. It's our responsibility to push back against the federal government and retain our state sovereignty. Now, the relationship that exists between the state and its political subdivisions is different. It's not the same. The cities and counties don't exist to push back on state government. In fact, they're called political subdivisions for a reason. They are a subdivision of the state. The state actually has broad authority to create those political subdivisions, to create sort of the rules around when subdivisions can be created, and frequently they're organic creations where a community will come together and decide this is our town, or there's enough of us now that let's form a city. Counties are more involuntary, but most of the other political subdivisions kind of come together through community, but based on statutory requirements. So, and then there's this great court case called Pittsburgh versus Hunter, where the Supreme Court established really defined really what that relationship is. And again, it's very broad. The state has very broad authority in the creation of its political subdivisions. And the court stated that subdivisions are created as convenient agencies for exercising such of the governmental powers of the state as may be entrusted to them. So these are delegated authorities, and the state doesn't ever give up that responsibility and that obligation, whereas again the federal and the state is very separate. We as states have our own authorities, and we don't want the federal government messing with that. When we create political subdivisions, though, we still have that responsibility, and so what is our role in overseeing that? Again, it's broad. It's very broad. So there are times where we're asked to review policy regarding those subdivisions, and that's our role here. Absolutely one of our roles. Well, there's a bill today on the floor called Oversight Committee Creation, and this has caused no small uproar. And this was meant to create a body that would have oversight of the political subdivisions. Guess who opposed that? The political subdivisions, the cities and the counties and the districts didn't like that. They don't want that oversight. But it would be flawed reasoning to say that the state shouldn't exercise that oversight. And I think that's where our debates kind of got conflated with our understanding of our relationship with the federal government. So the political subdivisions didn't like this, lobbied their representatives to oppose this bill. Now, the bill itself in its construction might not have been perfect, but I was a little bit troubled by some of the arguments in opposition to the bill that basically contended that it's not our responsibility to have oversight of these political subdivisions. Some of the arguments really, I don't think were fair. There were some people contending that for the state to exercise its oversight role would somehow be treating our political subdivisions as children. And, I don't know where else we view oversight where it's generally accepted as treating the overseen entity as a child. It's recognizing our responsibility and our obligations as a state to exercise oversight. We delegate to these political subdivisions some pretty far-ranging authority. Most people haven't interacted a lot with the federal government, maybe not even the state, but your local government is going to tell you how high you can grow your grass, if you can have chickens in your backyard, how many dogs or cats you can have, and other types of ordinances that really can impact your life very, very directly. So the state has a role in oversight. Now, whether this bill was the right or perfect creation of an oversight role, I don't know. But the arguments that were frequent on the floor today were a question of whether we should exercise oversight of our political subdivisions. And, that's really not in question. The courts have been very clear on that. We, as states, have broad oversight in the management of those political subdivisions in the delegated authorities we give them. Now, I wasn't super keen on supporting the bill when, as I've heard about it over the last several days, until I started seeing some behaviors of some of our political subdivisions. In the water bill that I did pass out of the committee this morning, this was a bill, again, that just asks cities to be transparent about some of their water distribution activity. We ask them to report some data that they already have, just make it accessible, make it transparent. But the number of cities that came out in opposition of this and just said, yeah, no, we don't want to. Holy cow. A number of the committee members were persuaded by their cities and towns to oppose this bill. And I heard a few, maybe legitimate reasons, but most of it was just that they didn't want to. Just didn't want to. And that's concerning to me. I took an oath to uphold the Constitution of the United States and of the state of Utah, not West Jordan. Yeah, that wasn't in my oath. But I'm concerned that our political subdivisions are resistant to transparency and accountability. When we give them the ability to tax you, we give them the ability to enforce ordinances on you. We give police powers to law enforcement, but then these entities don't want the accountability from the state. They don't want oversight from the state. So that concerns me. So after seeing some shenanigans of a particular county and some of the cities in rejecting some of these oversight measures, I thought maybe we do need something like this. Maybe we do need an oversight entity that directly deals with oversight, similar to Congress. So I did vote for this, and it lost. I was not on the prevailing side of that, but it really was a good exercise to me in the consideration of the principles of local control versus what is the role of the state in overseeing its delegated authorities to political subdivisions. So very interesting, and I think we're not finished with this issue. Maybe this bill wasn't the best one, but I think we need to look at something that does give us a little bit better oversight.